Hello, this is Tic Tac from beatbox.guru. Welcome to the second part of the Roxorloops interview, where he talks about how his style came to be and what were his origins and how he raised up in beatboxing culture. Enjoy watching. How was it back in the day?
Yeah, when I started beatboxing, what triggered it for me was If Your Mother Only Knew by Razel. Razel is an American guy who's also called the godfather of noise, and he is one of the biggest legends in beatboxing ever. So for the young kids that don't know him, shame on you, really. And because he was the first one to really perform singing and beatboxing at the same time on a very good level, and he had all these robot sounds, he had a lot of bass sounds, and still many of his techniques are used nowadays, even in the new school and whatever you want to call it. His techniques are still alive. Whenever somebody does a standard throat bass, it's reminding of Razel, if you knew it back in the days. So even if you do bum or wow 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 wow, if you do it with a throat bass, it's a Razel sound. These robot sounds, a lot of the sounds are Razel. So when I heard him first time, If Your Mother Only Knew, I couldn't believe it. You know, it was before YouTube. Oh, I was such an old guy. We did have internet, and through the mail there was a MP3 sent around from If Your Mother Only Knew, and it was some guy who was doing it only with his voice. You know, he was doing beatbox, and I couldn't believe it. I was listening to it again and again and said, no way, there is something playing and he cannot do this. And then I had a friend known in the beatbox world as Copycat, and he was already doing a little bit of beatboxing, and he knew a guy who was Belgian champion or whatever, and that guy could do If Your Mother Only Knew. And so I was like, okay, I want to see it. And then I saw this guy, his name is Beethoven, or a wizard, and he's an old school Belgian beatboxer, and he blew my mind. He's the first guy who was really experimenting with triplets in beatboxing. So we didn't have that Razel. Kenny Mohammed had it like once in a while a little bit. Triplets are like this in three, and he was the first one to do this. So I based my style a lot on him, on Beethoven, but also on Razel, Kenny Mohammed, Killa Kella, who was fresh back in those days. He was new, upcoming, first European beatboxer, let's say. But I started searching for beatbox because I really wanted to know everything about it. So then I found some obscure sites where there was MP3s of people like Click Da Super Latin, Doggy Fresh, Bismarcky, Greg Nice, and yeah, a lot of other names which are probably unknown to the new generation. Even Will Smith beatboxing, and also Tic Tac site.
Boom.
Boom. It was one of the only available sources for beatboxing. And so I started practicing doing their beats, copying what they were doing, and I had also an audio tape from Beethoven. One of my favorite beats all time is and that's old school style. And so I was practicing all these beats. And um, everything, all the old school classics, and but I was never able to do it 100% as the track. And even in my covers and in everything I do, somehow I never get to doing it 100%. I just have the feeling inside, and then I'm bringing out what I feel from the song. And in this way, I started to mix up all those things of Kenny Mohammed, Killa Killa, Beethoven, and start to develop an own style based on those styles. And I was beatboxing for 1 year and a little bit, and then I participated on my first battle. And I had a lot of fresh stuff, original stuff, where I was singing some Belgian songs and beatboxing at the same time. And I went to this battle and came with original stuff, but there was a guy called Fatty K, and Fatty just destroyed me. He was loud, strong, powerful, and he was doing a lot of stuff from Razel and so on, but also a little bit of his own stuff. He was doing house music as well, like first time I ever heard anyone doing fucking kick drum style music. It wasn't done before, there was only hip hop. And yeah, he kicked my ass really, really heavily, and I was impressed. He was also doing and when I heard it, I was like, what the fuck, he's cheating. There's like, it's impossible.
How does he believe? So which year was that?
No, year, I don't know. I was 17 when I started, so like when I was 18, that probably around 2002, 2003. Then I got home and I just practiced even more and like really, and my eyes opened, because I only had, you know, I think every beatboxer has this time in his life when you're really beatboxing a lot. You have this moment where you think, I'm the best, you know, like where you think, oh, I can do If Your Mother Only Know, and I can do this and I can do that, oh, I can do all the techniques. But then, you know, it opened my eyes that I am not the best, and maybe I will never be, and there will always be different people with different styles, and I should just practice. And I also developed in my own style, starting to find new sounds and new techniques, rhythms. I got really deep into technical stuff. I would say that after Kenny Mohammed, I'm one of the first guys who really break patterns down into every little sound, divided by 2, by 4, by 8, 16, 32, 3, 6, 9, 12, and this really, like, you know, it developed, and then I think half a year after this first battle, I had a battle versus Fatty K again, but it was not on a event, it was not a battle event, it was just some party, and it was headline was Fatty K versus Roxorloops. It was like
rematch.
exactly, and very hardcore battle. There is somewhere online some MP3 of it. I once heard it, and I was again doing a lot of my own new stuff, also incorporating echoes, which were pretty fucking new at that time, which I learned from Dukebox UK, so props to Dukebox. And I started to make my own beats and my own words with the echoes, and then battle with Fatty K, and it was a draw. You know, there was no jury, so it was audience to decide, and it was a party, so it was more for fun. Boom.
Please tell me about how you work on the patterns, on the sequences, because this is very interesting for me. Was it because it's so mathematical, you know, sometimes, and a lot of beatboxers built on this later on, Skiller, Alem, and many others. So how did you develop this technique, and how did you work on it?
Yeah. Mm. So the triplets came from Beethoven, and this triplet thing, this idea of dividing things in three or having 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1, this was something really interesting to me because yeah, I always looked at it mathematically. So seeing divisions like, and then going, so and always having this, and everything in between has to be cut in the right, you know, like if like cutting a cake, they would say in the school. And then I started to just have this this feeling of every hit, so not a sound but the feeling, and imagining that on every part of this sound can be another sound. Yeah, so there is like, when I'm doing, there is, but I'm switching my kick for a hi-hat, my hi-hat for a snare, and the snare for the kick. So it goes, and just this idea of like, okay, every sound, you can just like put whatever sound on whatever part, and you can make silences as well. This made me change up things like wind technique, where you have the and when you do it with a snare, with the, and you can make the more, and then if you change the for the and the for the, you get, and I think this is such a funky rhythm. And it's just the wind technique. But you know, like nya, 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 and like a Rubik's Cube, change around, this one there. And so this is for me what made me go into technical beatboxing, and yeah, and which was an amazing, you know, okay, now I can make whatever I want. The realization of this, because in the beginning we were learning, it was some kind of, you know, standard fixed pattern, yeah. Fixed, yeah, it's like this, you go, and there was no, you know, there was no, and you can make, instead of, you can make, or, oh, or, you know, there was no, no changing of it. It was the fixed pattern. And I started to look at it really like producing beats. When I was younger, I sometimes experimented with programs like Fruity Loops or older Fast Tracker. I don't know, probably young generation doesn't know at all, but
it's
there was
vertical.
Fast Tracker 2, yeah, exactly, and going down like this, and you had the bars to like, and then you put your kick drum, like a sample here and a sample there, and then like every 4 there was a kick drum, and in between the heights. And so I started to really think of beatbox in this way, as a like, okay, I can put this here, this sound there, this there, and every sound you can tweak, like when you're doing wind technique, you are having a accent on this snare is like the harder one, and all the ones in between are softer ghost notes more. And this, you know, like you can tweak every sound, make it more silent or more loud where you want, change it on tone. You can, so you can tweak everything, and really like a music program, you can make your own music, which is super cool.
development for younger beatboxers, would you recommend experimenting with software, computer software as well?
Yeah, I think it's really important to get into how music works. If you're a beatboxer and you don't know how music works, you're missing out on a lot. So I guess every beatboxer gets, when he gets his basics from wherever, YouTube or from a friend or wherever, you will get this 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a standard basic that everyone, and I'm not even sure if everyone has it, but that everyone should have. But if you get into this, you know, like what's in between and how music works, and then later on also maybe melody, tones, this is really something strong, important as you are a musician, as a beatboxer. I mean, that's, for me, is I'm a musician in the first place, and beatbox is my instrument.
Please tell me something more about the different projects you participated in as a musician, as a voice percussionist.
So when I started beatboxing, it was mostly together with my friend known as Copycat in the beatbox world. And we were doing it together, a little bit competitive as well, like look what I got, and there's this one, and you know. And I always found beatboxing more interesting with a friend, with someone, you know, like, because alone is cool to go deep and practice, and maybe you smoke some joints and you I don't know, could happen when you are young and naive and someone sold you for a way too high price, and and you know, then beatboxing alone can be interesting, but for me the fun was always to do it with more people. And I really after I battled Fatty K for my second time, I decided to be friends with him and like, let's make some beats together. And I started a group called The Force with 4 beatboxers. It was Beethoven, Fatty K, Rustics, also very, very inspiring beatboxer from Belgium, and myself. And we were really making music where, you know, normally when beatboxers got together, they were all doing the beats, or maybe like the most advanced thing was some were doing a beat and another one was scratching, but it was a lot on each other, you know, and everyone was just showing off skills. And with this project, we were one of the first to like break it down. Okay, one does a kick drum, another one does hi-hats on top of it with a snare maybe, another one does a bass line on it, and the other one does a trumpet. And so this was the first, you know, making this, thinking like a music program bigger. You know, it's not only you who has a couple of lines, but also your friends have lines, and so try to make the music together. And what was also very important and fun for me was that it was not a freestyle thing. So it wasn't just all, of course we freestyled for fun, and sometimes in shows it's a good moment when there's a freestyle, something fun happens, but we also structurized things, you know, like 4 bars of this, then this guy comes in, then that happens, then this happens. And this way of working up till today is still for me the way of making music with a group. And that's how music works actually, like all artists, musicians, unless you're on a jam or you're doing some jam song, but if you are doing a show or recording a song, everything is structured. And so after The Force, there was again a little bit of dispute between Fatty K and me, and we kind of split. Rustics and Fatty K made a group with Scale, old school Belgian beatboxer, called Beatbox.guru. And me, I got off with it, and I had my girlfriend back in the days called Karen. She was singing. And then my brother once had a dream about having Copycat and me and Karen as a singer to be in a band and be on big stages. And so we tried it. it was hard work, but after a while, you know, my brother was really good in house music and mixing house, and he helped us to make sets with cover after cover after cover, like mashup songs. And with Be Toxic, we really had a big success from, you know, like going from scratch to like performing on bigger places, earning more money, getting some kind of sponsors. It was really going well. And it stopped at a certain moment, as apparently all my projects stop at a certain moment. Some disputes, and we stopped performing together.
You've been watching Beatbox Guru. If you like the videos, please hit that subscribe button to make sure you get your beatboxing knowledge.